Hi, my name is Cindy Witteman, and I'm so excited to have a conversation with Pearl today.
Hey everybody, it's Pearl Chiarenza again with Women Successful Living, and we are back with another amazing Conversation with Pearl episode. And I'm so excited to have you all here, but I'm also always excited to bring some amazing women. And today is no different that I'm going to introduce you to. So let me tell you about our guest today. Her name is Cindy Witteman, and she's from San Antonio, Texas. She is a business owner, author, action mastery coach, and founder and CEO of Force Magazine. She hosts the Little Give TV show I love this, and the Is Manifesting Bullshit podcast. I love that. As a founder and CEO of Driving Single Parents Incorporated, which is a 501(c) nonprofit, she has helped numerous single parents regain independence with reliable vehicles at no cost. A former single parent and proud stepmom to 6 kids and 4 grandchildren, she loves traveling, family time, and giving back. And I mean, it just touches my heart. I mean, 6 kids, grandchildren, and you guys look at her like she looks like she's a baby.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Cindy, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and dive into all things Pearl wants to know.
Yay! Well, first of all, I always like to ask our guests to sort of do some reminiscing with me. So if you'll play with me, I want to take you back to when you were that little girl. And you know, when we're little, they're always talking about, what do you want to be when you grow up? And who do you want to do? And what does life look like for you? Right. And so I always find it interesting that when you do that reminiscing, even myself, when I was little, I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to, go teach elementary school. And while I never went that route, I find myself today, here I am teaching, I'm coaching. I help women, step into the power of understanding the word no as a complete sentence that you can say with a big smile on your face so that they can show up as that Shiro, that stronger, happy, empowered, radiant, original self that they are in their life. They just need to figure it out because they're saying yes to everybody else, right? So with that, if you would play along with us and just kind of give us some reminiscing about what did you want to be when you grow up? And then how does it parallel to what you're doing today?
So I grew up super, super poor. And so we didn't have a whole lot. And so there was this song and it was called, I'm going to be somebody one day. And so that's what I would always say is like, I'm going to be somebody one day. So everybody would always ask that question. What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up? And I would say, I'm going to be somebody someday. And that's really kind of what I wanted, because being somebody who grew up in generational poverty and didn't have a lot, when you walk in the room, everybody looked at what you didn't have and how you didn't appear and all the things that you were not instead of what you were. So I always felt like a nobody in those early stages of my life. And I was like, one day I'm going to be somebody. And how does that, how is it what I am today? Well, it comes in today because what I realized through my life journey after that was that I wanted to help other people. I wanted other people to be seen and known and heard. And I wanted to shine a light on the incredible people that are in this world. And so I do a lot of that these days.
That's so powerful, like being seen, known, and heard. But like talking about that generational stuff. I mean, you're right. When we don't have, people look about what we don't have, right? Instead of being like, what do I have? What am I? I have a roof over my head. That's a big thing. But oftentimes, like you said, I remember growing up kind of similar. My dad did 3 tours in Vietnam, and so my mom was somewhat of a single mom. Even though she was married, she was having to work to provide for us 3 kids. And I remember I'm the oldest of 3, and I'm 7 years older than my youngest brother. And so I remember having to step into that role of helping my mom. That's sort of what framed me and formed me to become that people pleaser that I became, because mom says I have to take care of the kid. My brother and sister, mom said I have to, so I have to do because I'm being asked to do, right? Even though maybe I didn't want to watch my brother and sister all the time. I'd rather go out with my friends, right? But I had to do that. And so I love what you said is I wrote down, I'm going to be somebody someday. I think it's really awesome that you're embracing that, like the things you're doing. We're going to talk about that, what you're doing today, but to recognize that you didn't want to be a title, right? You want to be somebody. And I think learning that at a young age is powerful because, those of us that are people pleasers, we wear our titles. We wear, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm an employee, I'm a business owner. We wear all these titles, but we don't realize, who do we want to be on the inside? Like, what do I want to be? Who do I want to be? And at a young age, you're like going, I'm going to be somebody someday. Like, you just stepped right into that and said, and you embraced it, right? So
Yes.
I love that you were able to do that at a young age. And for those that are listening, if you have littles at home, or even somebody that you're mentoring that maybe is struggling with that, play this episode back for them, because to be empowered and to pay it forward and teach our young adults, teach, those that we're mentoring, you can be anybody you want to be. You just have to put the work in, right? So
Yeah.
let's talk about the work you've done, Cindy. Tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming who you are today.
Yeah, so part of that, the second part of that song is, of course, it's I'm going to be somebody one day. And then it says, one of these days, I'm going to break these chains. And so that was really part of my journey, was knowing that I'm going to be somebody one day, because this is who I am right now, but this isn't who I'm going to be forever. And so really just transitioning through my life and going through, I grew up with my mom, who was a single mom, and she was very, very loving, but she was terrible with money. So we went without a lot, a lot, a lot. And as I grew through that journey, I figured out that the way to escape that situation was to get married in my early teens and start my happily ever after. Yeah, but it didn't go that well. It didn't go that way. So I ended up in a domestic violence situation, and I was in that marriage for almost 10 years. And it was a really trying time for me because, again, I had that song playing in my head, like, I'm going to be somebody one day. Obviously, hopefully not this forever. But I really had it in me that I was never going to be that dreaded single mom. I was going to have the white picket fence. I was going to have the perfect household in the family. And I had children at this point. And I really was trying to, even though they were not being abused, I was. So I kept thinking, I'm going to talk less. I'm going to cook better. I'm going to clean better. I'm going to do these things because I am not going to ever be a single mom. I'm going to make this work. And it actually was, I was watching Dr. Phil one day folding clothes and watching the episode. And when the daughters were there playing, and Dr. Phil says, it's better to come from a broken home than it is to grow up in one. And I don't know what it was, Pearl, about that moment, but it was almost like he was speaking directly to me. And I realized in that very moment that, oh my goodness, by trying to do the right thing for my daughters, I'm doing the wrong thing. So I immediately got up, I got a basket of clothes, a bag of diapers, I got my daughters, and we escaped that situation. And I went out and built a new life for us. So that's a little bit of the backstory from the beginning.
Yeah, that's powerful. Isn't it interesting how what kind of gives us that wake up call, right? It's like, oh, they're talking to me, even though, he was talking to many, but it was like that message came through loud and clear to you. And and to, many, I mean, I'm going to be 60 this year. Many generational is that you stay with the spouse, you don't leave. The like you said, the perfect picket fence and everything. You have to have a spouse and everything. And so then you get in a situation like you were with your kids, and you're like, I'm going to do all these things so that they have that perfect family, right? That looks like that perfect family. And I'm glad you did. I don't know how old your kids were when you did, but I'm glad you did, because for me, growing up in my household, my parents divorced after 43 years of marriage. I was 44 or 42 when they divorced. So put the numbers together. They should have truly never been married as long as they were. And my mom, because her faith said you don't get divorced, and her faith said it's a sin to do that, she stayed. And when she finally realized, for us, it was too late. But, the generational stuff was already there. For me, though, I, at a very young age, and it was because I wanted to fit in with my friends. I wanted to go to the store and shop. That at 12 years old, my parents like, we're still going to Kmart. If you want something else, you're going to have your own money. So I started babysitting, and all my money went to so I could shop with my friends at the mall, right? And so by the time I turned 17, I was working full time, going to high school full time, carrying my probably a good, low B average with all of that. And I decided, I graduated high school at 17. I was like, I'm out, because now I have, I graduate high school, but you can pay rent now. And I was already paying my car and my car insurance. I'm like, if I'm going to pay you rent and have rules, I'm going to go take care of me. And that's what I did. So at 17, I moved out. Right. And so because I saw what my mom went through, I was very careful to be setting my boundaries, and I didn't realize it, but set boundaries around the relationships that I went into. So because my dad was in the military, if I met somebody in the military, I'm like, I appreciate your service. Not for me, I'm out,
For me.
So I knew I did not want to live that life. Right. So to identify and know, like you said, excuse me, I'm going to, be somebody, and you break those chains. For me too, at 17 years of age, I want to break those chains. And I'm glad you did that to help that generational trauma. Because when we can break the generational trauma, it's funny we're talking about this, not even an hour ago, Cindy, I saw somebody put on a TikTok video. It started out, there was 4 or 5 glasses. It started with grandma, all the generational trauma. It's like, if you guys can picture a tall glass of water that has dirt in it. So it looks like muddy water, right? So then they take grandma's glass and they pour it into daughter's glass, right? So now it goes into daughter's glass, who then it comes from daughter's glass, that dirty water goes to the next daughter's glass, right? So then you've got the fourth daughter's glass this year. It's a little tinier, right? So what they shared, and it was so cool, is that generational trauma, and for those of you who are listening, if you can picture it, generational trauma doesn't stop until you make the decision. You make the decision that I'm not going to carry it down to my children or any more generations, right? So literally, if you can picture it, in this picture, that last glass, before it gets poured to the final glass, is showing water just keep pouring in and keep pouring in and keep pouring in till all the mud comes out and it's a clear glass of water. And then she pours it down to that little glass. I thought that was such a powerful example. And I hope if you're listening, I hope I described it enough. But the message was that generational trauma is going to keep going until you do something to stop it, until you pour into your cup so much and you do the work to release it. And for me, that was a huge part of why I decided to leave at 17. I'm like, I don't want to be in a home where when my parents get in an argument, they don't talk for 2 weeks and all of a sudden everything's fine. We're hanging out. We're all happy. Right. I was like, I don't want that. And so working on me was so, so important. And like you said, you saw that Dr. Phil show and it was like he was talking to you and saying, it's better to come from a broken home, than to have this perfect, not so perfect family. Right. And so I love that you shared that and you're vulnerable. I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm sure it wasn't easy, right? Because what you talk about is how you help, single parents like regain that independence. So walk us through what that was like for you, Cindy. Like how did you packed up diapers, you packed up a laundry basket, and you're like, I got to make a change and you're making this change, but I'm sure it wasn't easy.
Oh, it was not easy. And it was terrifying because, I had already been conditioned, of course, domestic violence is not just the bumps and bruises you get from the violence, but also the conditioning and the mental abuse where I was being told that I was no good. I was never going to be good enough. Nobody wanted me. I was trash. I was going to be a loser like my mom. I was going to put my daughters through all these things. I had been told if I ever left that was what was going to happen. So, I'm strapping my 5-month-old daughter into her car seat and we're about to drive away to a very uncertain life. And it was hard. It was terrifying, but I knew that I was going to have to just do it. And I was going to have to do whatever I needed to do to make sure that I broke those chains. And not only from the generational poverty that I had suffered, but also from the domestic violence, because Dr. Phil was right when he said it's better to come from a broken home than it is to grow up in one. And I realized that my daughters were going to grow up seeing that abuse towards me, and they were going to think it's okay for them to be treated that way. So yeah, I loaded my daughters. I ended up working 2 jobs. I put myself through college. I sold plasma twice a week. I did so many things to try to ensure that even though it was a lot of hard work in the short term, that I was going to set us up for success so that we could have a bright future together. So, and with all of that being said, I always knew going through that journey that I was going to help other single parents out there. I knew that was going to be my mission because of how terrifying it was for me to leave and how I had been through so much coming from a single mom. I really wanted to make sure that people think that you choose single parenthood. And let me tell you, I don't know anybody who wakes up in the morning and says, you know what I'd love to do today? I'd love to be a single parent. Like nobody does that because it's the hardest job ever. And so I wanted to kind of shatter the stigma around single parenthood and show that people don't choose single parenthood. A lot of times it's an accident or, somebody lost in a car accident, suicide, all kinds of things happen, domestic violence. I could go on and on. So as I really kind of thought through how I was going to help other single parents, I thought back to my primary need. And it just really, one day I was actually at dinner when it hit me what I was going to do. And I stood at the table and said, that's it. I'm going to give away cars to single parents. And I was having dinner with he was my fiance then, but now he's my husband. And he's a lawyer. He says, sit down, Cindy. You are not giving away anything. Do you know what liability that would be? Like, you cannot do that. So I listened very intently, and within 24 hours, I built the business plan and I gave away a car less than a month later.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's like amazing. Less than a month later. Let me just back up to what you started. Let's come back to the car in just a second, what you're doing. But I love what you like, how you shared, because single parenthood could be different reasons. Like, it's just like with me losing a child, that grief journey, it's a whole, nobody asked to say, I'm going to go be a single parent. I want to be a parent of somebody who's lost a child. We don't ask for that, but I like how you said, like, it's what you're going to do with it. Like, what can I do? How I coach an amazing nonprofit. So I do coaching for nonprofits that want to pour into those that they're helping at their nonprofit. And one here, look, is called the Mary Martha House. And so I coach the women once a month, and then they can get coaching calls with me throughout the month. But the one thing I say to them all the time is, you didn't pick to be here. You're here for whatever the journey's supposed to be. We're going to walk through and help you bounce forward with the journey. And somebody's going to put their head in the bed that you're sleeping in right now with your kids. And so when you bounce forward from the house, really leave a message to that person that's going to put their head in that bed, like pour into them, because we all go through something that we need to pay it forward. I think it's a great message and reminder. What you shared is, how can I take what I've been through and how can I teach and empower? How can I, and like you said, first of all, an example to your girls, because you're 100% right. And if you're listening to us and you have littles at home, listen to this. Between 2 and 7 years old, they watch, they emulate, and they take in to their bodies what they see you act and do and say. And if you are saying things that maybe you don't want to say, if you're doing behaviors you don't want them to do, like, really look in the mirror and be like, do I want my child to talk, act, and be like this? The answer is no. You have to stop. You have to get help. You have to reach out to somebody, whether it's reaching out to a coach like myself. You have to reach out for help, because it's so, so important. I remember my son had a friend that came over with his daughter, and he's going through a custody thing with the mother. They weren't married. And the mother she's 4 years old. No, sorry, she was 5 years old. She put an Apple Watch on this little girl's arm. No 5-year-old needs an Apple Watch. And so when she came to my house and we were celebrating her birthday, all of a sudden this watch goes off because the moms wanted to find out, what is she doing? What are you up to? And that terror in that little girl's face hit my heart to the core. I almost cried. And I pulled that young man aside and I said, listen, get your cojones intact right now, because if you don't do something about this behavior, she's going to think later on in life that she can be controlled. To be controlled by situations and by people are going to be what she has to do. And you have to show her that you need to break that chain. And like you said, you did that. You broke those shackles, like Dr. Phil was talking about, breaking those shackles in that song. And you did that. And it's so, so important that if you're listening to us, that you remember, you can break the shackles, you can ask for help. You don't have to be in that situation. And if, there's different resources you can reach out to for all that we're talking about. And then for you, Cindy, to take it and say, what can I do to pay forward? And I could totally see your husband / fiance at the time sitting there going, sit down, Cindy. You can't give away a car. Like, I totally can be like, oh my gosh, she's so right. Like, but you guys, look, Cindy didn't let somebody telling her, no, you can't do that. Did it stop her? No, it didn't stop her. Less than a month later, you give away a car. I mean,
Yep.
like, tell us about
it. We've been doing it for 7 years now.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so 7 years. So tell us about like that, like, how does that work? If somebody's listening, like maybe and says, man, Cindy, I love that idea. I'd love to try to something like that. Like, how, tell us a little bit about that. How, creating the 501(c) a nonprofit. Walk us through some of those ideas, because that's not easy, you guys. If you're listening to us, creating that 501(c), all the stuff you have to go through. So walk us through that journey of that, how you did that.
Well, first off, I'd love to say ignorance is bliss because I had absolutely no idea how difficult it would be. I really thought I'm doing something good. Won't this be fun? Right. And it is a lot of red tape. It is a lot. And you really have to be attached to your mission because if you're not, it's going to fizzle. And a lot of nonprofits fail for that reason. You have to be willing to put the work in. And so when I first thought of the nonprofit, I really wanted to make sure that it was not a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. And there are so many nonprofits out there that are incredible, that are so, so, so needed. But when I thought about what nonprofit I would start, I really thought about, like if you go to a place and you get food or you get diapers or you get wipes, you need that again later. Today, tomorrow, the next day, you need it again. And then you have to get it again. So I thought, how is it that I could come up with a nonprofit that would help this person use whatever it is that I do as a tool to get themselves to the next level so they could depend and rely on themselves and teach their kids how to depend and rely on themselves. And I thought, you know what? That need that I had to work 2 jobs and go to college and get my daughters where they needed to go was that car. So that's why I decided on cars, because then, of course, you get that better paying job across town. You can definitely go enroll in college. We've had people graduate with their master's degrees, get married, buy homes. We've had people do amazing, incredible things once they've received the car. So if somebody in their area wants to start a nonprofit, I highly recommend it. I think you're going to have to dive in deep and listen to podcasts, listen to audiobooks, read books, just really educate yourself and figure out what works best for you and the type of nonprofit that you are starting. And like you said earlier, Pearl, do not be afraid to ask for help. We all need help. And sometimes you need someone to kind of guide you in the right direction so you don't burn out before you can actually help somebody else with your nonprofit. So that's what it's about.
Yay, I love that. So you guys heard, like, you have to be tied to your mission. You have to be glued to your mission, what that is, and you have to be able to do, it's got to be your passion. It's got to become the thing that you are like so passionate about that nobody can stop you from doing it. Like, tell me what I got to do, where I got to go, who I got to talk to, all of that stuff. So tell us, like, so when somebody comes to you and they're coming to your nonprofit and trying to work with you about getting a car, what are some of the criteria that because there's got to be criteria. I'm sure everything's got rules and criteria, but tell us some of that. And then tell us a story that comes to your mind. Like, I know you just shared about master's degrees and stuff, but give us one story that you're just like, oh my gosh, like you went, this is why I do this.
Okay, cool. So, the first question you asked, can you repeat the first question you asked? I'm sorry.
No,
Yes.
you're fine. So when somebody comes to you, like, what are
Oh,
some
yeah.
of the parameters for
Criteria.
that?
Criteria, got it. Okay, so I want it to be really, really simple because anybody who's ever gotten government assistance or applied for any kind of help, it feels like you need to like give them your left arm, a blood sample, DNA, all the things, your firstborn child. It's a lot. So I wanted to be very simple. So I went with very simple. Your name. Do you have a valid Texas driver's license? Do you have the ability to obtain and maintain car insurance? That's not our rule. It's a Texas state law that you have to have car insurance. So there's that. And then just, are you a single parent? Do you live in Bear County? Just very, very basic information that we ask in the front end. Once somebody fills that out, they meet that minimum qualification, then we go ahead and send them information on how to submit a video. Because although there's so many different ways to do applications, I know that whenever I wanted to be considering people for a vehicle, I wanted to make it open to everyone. And although some people are amazing at communicating and writing, some people are not. Some people are amazing at communicating on video and some people are not. So I wanted it to do both. So what I did was ask how the car would change your life in a typed out way. You could just say it in your own format. And then you have to submit a video stating how that will change your life to have a vehicle. So that's how it comes through. Then we review all of the videos and narrow it down. Of course, then we do like background checks and make sure we do our due diligence to make sure the vehicle is going to someone who's really going to use it as a tool to get themselves and their family to the next level. So that's a bit about the criteria part. Now, I have 2 really incredible stories, but if you only want me to give you one, I will. Can I give you both? Okay, so the first car we gave away was, like I said, less than a month later, and it went to a gentleman by the name of John Cano, who is so supportive of our mission today, still drives the vehicle today, 7 years later, refuses to sell it. He absolutely loves it. So it went to a single dad, and he was actually hit by a drunk driver. And in that accident, not only did he lose his vehicle, he lost his wife and he lost his leg. So he became a handicapped single dad overnight, and he had to go through a lot of rehabilitation and different things. But once he was ready, then it was just perfect timing for him to come on as our first recipient. And like I said, he still drives that vehicle to this day. He has sent me videos of his kids graduating high school and going off to do amazing things. Daddy daughter dates in the vehicle. I mean, just all the things, all of his independence that he was able to regain from that, and seeing him still use it and share his story to this day to help our nonprofit continue to grow. So that's one story. That's the very first vehicle we gave away. The second story I want to tell you is from last July. So we had given away a vehicle a while back to a woman by the name of Latika. Latika immediately joined our board of directors because she wanted to help us grow our mission and give back. So right now we have four previous recipients on our board of directors. But Latika immediately moves up the ranks. She becomes our vice president of philanthropy. She calls me last year. She says, Cindy, I was able to get myself in a better place. She graduated with her degree. She got married. I went to her wedding. And she says, I'm in a better place now. I want to donate the car back to driving single parents. So she buys herself a vehicle, donates the car back. And then last July, we blessed another single parent family with that very same vehicle. And that single parent is now in dental school to become a dentist and doing incredible things as well, and also helping out our nonprofit. So it's just right there. That tells me I'm in the right place, because that's what you asked me to do, is share a story where I know I'm in the right place. Well, one, with John still driving that car, and then two, with the circle of kindness and love and giving back that this organization has really brought to the forefront. It just shows me that not only am I in the right place with my choice of nonprofit, but we are picking the right people who truly, truly have a heart for giving back and that want to help make the world a better place and better their own circumstances for themselves and their children.
Oh my gosh, you guys, if you're not like smiling, like hearing that story, like I've got the biggest smile on my face, and just watching Cindy smile and as she shares the stories. I mean, I can't imagine him, losing his wife and all of that. And then, we hear stories often about like those things happen, and all of a sudden you've got this tragic situation. You've got to step up to, as a mom who's lost a son that already also has a son still here. It's like, finding that, how do I balance, how do I navigate life? And then on top of that, have an injury that's, that's changing your life. It's like finding that, and then to be able to say, thank you for relieving that stress, and I get why he wants to hold, I mean, I get chills just saying this. It's like that reminder of where he was and where he's come to, and then I think it's so cool to have that full circle with Lakita. I think it's such a beautiful thing, like to think about. Yeah, she probably could have sold the car and make money, but she's like, no, I was so blessed. I want to bless. Again, going back to what we said earlier, how can I pay it forward? How can I take my story and pay it forward and let somebody else know you're not alone? You have help. I can be your mentor. I can help give you this car. I think it's so, so amazing that you've had that full. Those are two amazing stories. I love those for your nonprofit. I'm sitting here thinking as you were talking, I'm like going, man, I wonder what her husband's saying about it now, going, I told her no, and she still did it.
Yeah, he's like, oh, you were right. Yeah, I could see it in my mind so clear. We talked about being tied to your mission, married to your mission, truly knowing that that's your why, what your why is. And in that moment when it hit me, it literally flashed forward to many years later of all the families' lives I was going to touch, and how that was not only going to affect that single parent, but it was going to affect their children and their children and their children and so on, and their family around them that now they can go and visit and spend time with, and their financial. I mean, just I could see it in that moment so clear. And so I knew I was on the right path.
And that's a great reminder, you guys. Like when you feel in your heart, like you just know, I have to do this. And you just see it, you feel it, and you know it, go with it. Like that's why I tell everybody, like, how are you showing up? That's why I have this whole Shiro method that I do, because I want to take you from being, stuck and thinking you can't do for yourself because you have kids, you have job, you have all these things that are titles for you. And I love helping women learn that you can release the titles. You can still wear some of the titles while you find harmony in knowing that there's things that you're supposed to do. I often talk about, and if you're listening to me, you probably heard me say it before. We come into this world like Cindy. Cindy came into this world God knew her story. Maybe he didn't want to go exactly the path that it did, but he knew he was going to use you to do good in this world, right? And so if Cindy had not done that, if she had not listened to the song lyrics, listened to Dr. Phil, who was being used, I feel, to get a message to her, she might not be where we're sitting here today. And the thing is like she would have been cheating herself, this beautiful life and this thing that she's created and this nonprofit and what she's doing for others. She's created that. So had she not done that, she was cheating herself. You would have cheated yourself to have a better life, to show your girls have a better life that they can have, that this is, you don't have to live with this. And then she would have been cheating the other people who she just gave us two amazing examples on how she can change their lives. So if you're listening right now and you're stuck and you feel like, oh my gosh, I hear what they're saying, but I just can't. Yes, you can. And
Yes,
I mean,
you can.
you can reach out and message me through here. You can say, Shiro, and send me an email at info@wsliving.com, because you're worthy and you have to say yes to yourself. Because like Cindy, like you're saying, it's you saw it. It was clear. It's like you saw two things. I have to make a change in my life for my girls. You saw that first. That was so important for you and your girls and that generational trauma to stop. And then you said, I see I can do something with my story and this is what I want to do. And you didn't take no. You said, I don't care. I'm doing it. Yes is yes for me and no is no for you. And either you're going to come alongside me or you can hang out and watch me do it. Right. So
Yeah,
think
and
that.
I would love to point out to the audience that, I not only did I get down in that moment from my fiance being like, sit down, Cindy, you're not doing this. I also, the waitress told me, oh, maybe you should do Uber or Lyft or something at that restaurant, and I thought, you're trying to like dim down, put the lampshade over my light here and I'm not going to have it. But they weren't the only people. People closest to me were like, well, Cindy, everybody had an opinion, and so I just knew I had to go forward. And I also want to point out that the time that I gave away that first car, I was a single parent myself, and I was driving a vehicle that I paid $3,500 cash for that had over 125,000 miles on it. So my point is, you don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to know everything. When you get that gut feeling, that lightning bolt that says this is right, don't let anybody dim your light. Don't let anybody talk you down. Go with it when it feels right and do what you got to do. And think in ink is what I love to tell people. Write it down. Write down what you're trying to accomplish. If you think in ink, you can get the step 1 out of your mind and onto paper so your brain can move to step 2 and step 3.
And I love think and ink and don't, everybody, it's like when you start a business. I mean, if you're listening, how many times have you maybe started a business, had an idea, and first of all, your friends and family don't buy from you. Everybody's like, oh, my friends and family are going to buy from me. No, then stop telling yourself that, because it ain't going to happen. I can tell you, I've done, different things in my lifetime, even selling Tupperware, which everybody needed Tupperware back then. They didn't buy Tupperware for me. So I'm just telling you, it doesn't happen, even if something as simple as plastic. But if you get your message out, like what you're sharing, and you didn't let them dim your light, the ones that are supposed to work with you are going to work with you. It's like I do these retreats every year in September, and it's like the people that are supposed to be there are going to be there, and they show up, and it's always amazing. It's just, we're in our pajamas for 3-4 days on the beach. It's always, always amazing. So I want to talk about your TV show and your podcast, because I love both of the names. So the TV, it's called Little Give TV show, and then your podcast is Manifesting Bullshit. So talk to us about that. Like, I know, like when I decided to start a podcast, it was because I was actually co-hosting a podcast for somebody else. And my challenge was the host, it was her show. She was never prepared. And like, I want to be prepared. I want to know, I mean, you know that from me, Cindy, from working with me on this. Like, I want to be prepared. I want to show up. I want to know what's happening. And so I decided, no, that's not representing who I want to be. I want to be somebody who's pouring into others, bring amazing people like yourself together, that's paying forward something in their life so that we can have amazing conversations about self-care. And so I love the Little Give and it's Manifesting Bullshit. So talk to us about both of those.
Okay, great. Yeah. So, back to the nonprofit part, I didn't mention that I found out I had a fear of public speaking. How can you be a nonprofit founder and have a fear of public speaking? This does not work. I have to be the voice, right, of the nonprofit to spread the message, all the things. Well, fast forward many years later, I just made this commitment to myself that I was going to say yes. I was going to start saying yes. I was going to do it afraid. I was just going to stop letting my own fears dim my light. So I decided to say yes. Well, in 3 weeks, that ended up resulting in a book where I ended up writing a book. And then a second book. In the midst of the second book, I was offered the opportunity to be the host of a TV show. And immediately I said, no way. Are you crazy? I don't like to be on camera. I don't speak well. I have fear of public speaking. Like, absolutely not. Go find somebody else. And they said, well, what if we let you pick the name of your show? Well, what if we let you pick what the show's about? What if we let you pick how you do the show? What if we let you pick your own guest? What if we let you do everything for the show? Would you do it then? And I thought to myself, oh, they removed all the obstacles. And I said I was going to say yes. I was so mad at myself for making that commitment. So I went to dinner again. I don't know what it is about me and eating that makes me come up with the best ideas, but I had been thinking, like, what would make it worth it to me to get on the camera and do a TV show? Like, what would make it worth me being in front of the lens, terrified, shaking, scrambling my words? What would make it worth it? And I thought back to starting that nonprofit, and I thought, you can have the best nonprofit in the world, but if nobody knows about it, it's extremely difficult to grow your mission. I thought, what if I could do an entire show about little give, where, a big give seems like somebody else's problem, but a little give is something each and every one of us can do in our everyday life. So I thought that would make it worth it. If I could highlight ordinary people doing extraordinary things to help others, spread kindness, spread good news, because there's so much bad news out there, and then also highlight a nonprofit on every episode, that right there would be worth it to me. So now I've been a host for over a year for Little Give.
I loved how I don't do it afraid. I wrote that down. Do it afraid. I love how you said that to yourself. And then, like you said, like, I feel like you're trying to put every obstacle and God's like, no, 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 no. I'm moving that. I'm moving that. I'm moving that. So now what? Right. I love that. And and then you found a way to highlight others. Like, again, paying forward, I want to highlight others. You could have easily done a show all about you, all about what you do, all about your nonprofit. You said, no, I want to highlight what others are doing, because you're right. You have to, as a nonprofit, you have to be able to get you're the voice. You really are, and it's really, really important that you understand that. And if you struggle with that, like, get somebody else can help you be the voice. And so their TV show became that for you. I love that. And it's a year. That's so amazing.
And now it airs in 130 countries and has a potential viewership of a little over 30 million.
That's
so not
amazing.
only am I spreading good news and having people on there doing great things in the world, but I highlight a nonprofit in every single episode. And then at the end of the episode, I ask the audience to go find out more about the nonprofit. And if they're passionate about it, go donate $1 or $5, because every little give can make a huge impact to a nonprofit, and multiplied by the huge viewership I have, it really has made a huge impact to some of the nonprofits that we've had featured on the show.
That's fantastic. When we get down, I'll have to give you a nonprofit I think would be amazing to highlight as well. I'll tell you her story later. But okay, so now, well, first of all, let me ask you, where can we find the TV show? Is it online? Is it Roku?
Mm-hmm. But the easiest way to find it is you can just Google it, or you can go to littlegive.com, and then that'll have links and everything to the show. It's on Apple TV, Fire Stick, Amazon. It's pretty much everywhere. It's also on Phoenix TV. You can find it pretty easily. But if you go to littlegive.com, I have all the episodes featured there, and you can get to it very easy.
And we'll make sure it's in the show notes. So if you're driving or listening, you can't write that down, just go back and find us online, and you'll be able to get that as well. Put it all in the show notes. Okay, so now let's talk about the Manifesting Bullshit Show. I have to tell you, when I work with my clients, and I'm going to share a little story. One of my friends, Kari, her and I had this conversation about affirmations and all this stuff, right? And so when I was working with one of my clients, I remember saying, she's like, I need to have more income. I'm like, okay, well, stand in front of the mirror. Let's, pour into yourself. Like, you want me to stand in front of the mirror and say, I have all the abundance I need in my bank account. And we were like, yeah. And then she came back to me. She goes, Pro, I don't believe it. I'm like, you know what? And then Kari and I had a conversation about, we have to change the thought of affirmations, right? So we started saying, what if you stand in front of your mirror and say, I'm going to do activities and actions today that can bring money into my bank account. So you're telling your brain, go to work, you need to go to work, right? And then it can show up, right? Because if I'm saying I have all the money in my bank account and I only have $20, you're like, get lost, right? So I love your Manifesting Bullshit podcast. So tell us about that.
So that's also another fun journey. So after I'd written 3 books by this point, or no, sorry, I'd written 2 books already, and I went to my 3rd book. And my daughter was actually, didn't have one in the lineup. My daughter Kimberly, and like I said earlier, I have 6 kids. So my oldest is 26, and the next one's 24. We were just having a chat, me and my 2 oldest daughters on the phone, and my daughter Kimberly says, "Mom, you know what? We should write a book together." And I was like, "Oh, what would it be about?" She was like, "Oh, what about positive progress and positive mindset? Like, what about that?" I was like, well, okay, well, let me talk to my publisher and see if we can do it. So I reached out. They said, sure, yeah, we'll help. We'll sponsor you to do that. So I was like, okay, what will we name it? So we went back and forth on some different names. And then I finally went back to the first thing I thought when I heard about The Secret and manifesting. It's a bunch of bullshit. And I was like, is that bullshit? And so that's what I told my daughter. So what if we named it is Manifesting Bullshit? And they were like, awesome. So we went forward with that title. It actually got at the 2023 International Impact Award. And so that was awesome. And so after as this is going through, people, once they hear the title of the book, they're like, well, is it like this genuine curiosity, like want to know, like, is it bullshit or not? And so one day I was actually driving to the office and all of a sudden it just like hit me. It was a Friday morning and I was like, man, wouldn't it be cool to turn into a podcast, like a spinoff of the book where I could interview people who are like skeptics or people who believe or disbelieve, whatever, anybody with an opinion on manifesting to just really kind of cipher through all the different thoughts and opinions. I thought, what interesting conversation that would be. So sure enough, that night I came home, I built the trailer and I released my first episode.
That is awesome. And congratulations on the award. That's so cool when you do that. And yeah, and taking people and walking through the skeptics. I loved it. That's your thought behind putting that together. And then let's just talk about your daughter, wanting to do this with you. It's so cool as a mom when your kids want to do something with you, right? It's like, wow, again, goes back to what impact are you making on your children that they see what you're doing. I love that story. My son, Matthew, before he passed, Matt was mixed race and he was adopted and he was the only child of color, not only in our family, but in his biological family. And he saw the challenges. We talked often about the challenges he would have around, that scenario with his peers and everything. And he saw me do books. He's like, Mom, I think we should do a book about raising children of a different culture. And so we were going to start it. And then unfortunately, Matt passed. So my husband and I talked about, I'm like, it's really on my heart to pay this book forward. So we're going through with it. We've got some authors. We have about 10 more spots. And we're looking for families that have or adoptees that have been adopted by a different culture to share their good, bad, and different and empower, again, paying forward, So I love that your daughters are doing that. I think it's so, so, so amazing. So let's talk about the kids and let's talk about the family, right? So if you guys ever follow me, you know that I talk about what we do, like what is your identity? And then we get to the family. Those are your cheering team, as I like to call it, right? So 6 kids, grandbabies, and then how long have you been married now?
We've been married for 6 years, but we've been together for almost 10.
Awesome. So blended family?
Uh-huh. So I have 4 daughters, and then my husband has 2, a boy and a girl.
Oh, that's awesome. So the boy's like all this female stuff around.
Yeah, he's number 5 out of 6. So,
oh, wow. That's amazing.
yeah.
So you said your oldest is 26. How old is your youngest?
The youngest is 9.
Oh, yay. And then grandbabies are how old?
So 6, 1, 1, and just born last Saturday.
Oh, congratulations. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Boys, girls. How many boys? How many girls?
2 boys, 2 girls. So the middle ones are girls.
Oh, wow, that's so cool. So tell us, you've got these, this amazing nonprofit that you're doing. You've got this amazing blended family. Cindy, what do you do for yourself?
Well, I have this well, first of all, I run my calendar. My calendar does not run me. I have 3 date nights a week with my husband. I think it's really important to make sure I put that time in, and with my kiddos as well. Try to do one-on-one mommy-daughter time or mommy-son time or step-mommy-son, bonus mom-son time. So we try to put in a lot of that. And then I'm a beekeeper and I really enjoy that. It's really neat to get out there with the bees.
I love that you're a beekeeper. Let's talk for a second about the time with the date nights, but time with the kids. I think if you're listening, that's such a great reminder. And I've shared this before about making that time for the kids. I had a friend that I worked with when we were living in Virginia, and I would see him go out to breakfast with his kids, like separately. And I would see him every week, and I finally asked him, I go, what is that? He goes, I want to create time for my kids. He goes, I did it even when they were babies first it was to give my wife a break. And then when the second one came around, it was more to, I want to make these, have these relationships with them. And so he said, he's like, the table we sit at, I let them know as they got older, when they were younger, we talk about fun stuff and things. He would have engaging conversations to get feel for what's happening at school. But as I got older and he knew, when we hit that, late elementary school, early middle school, things change, bodies change, thoughts change. He's like, I wanted to create that safe space that they could come and say, good, better, and different. You can share anything you want to share with me here. And if there's something you've done, you're not going to get punished unless I have to contact the law. But he's like, it's like 100%. This is a safe space. There's no punishment. No, nothing will happen. And he said it just created great conversations. It created community. And, as my boys got older, Matthew, if he would say, we both had a love for sushi, he'd be like, Mom, you want to go for sushi? I knew that was, Mom, can we talk? Right. And then my younger son, when we would do movies and such, that was like our time to enjoy with each other. And so I'm glad you reminded us of that, because I think it's really important that if you're listening to us, create that time, even if you don't have kids. Who is that special person in your life that you want to create time with them? One of the big things that we do, Cindy, in July, and we don't have a nonprofit yet. People keep telling me, I haven't looked at that yet. But when my son, Matt, passed 2 years ago in July, what happened was about a week or two later, he had a friend show up at our door because Matt was in the middle of moving in with his girlfriend. And he was stopping by to see Matthew because they had had a little argument and he wanted to come by and resolve it. Right. And then a couple weeks later, somebody called my phone. Somehow or another, his number merged onto my telephone. I have no clue other than it's a God thing. And somebody texts and go, hey, are you online? I haven't seen you in a while. I'm like, online? I'm like, I'm not online. So I'm thinking, who's got a profile of me online? Right. And I'm not knowing that my son's phone number is connected. And then I realized, oh, they're trying to reach Matthew. So that showed us that we don't always stay connected with anybody. And so it was hard to sit down and talk about how Matt had passed to tell somebody that, right? So because Matt's birthday is in July 7th and he passed July 25th, 2 weeks later, we created this Make the Call for Matt. So if you're listening to us, and I know this is going to come out after July, but if you're listening to us, the goal is that you will pick up the phone. You will not email, you will not text. You will pick up the phone or stop at somebody's doorstep and say, hey, I just want to check on you, say hi, how are you? Because we don't know what tomorrow's going to be. We don't know if tomorrow's not going to be here. And I can tell you, in just having conversation with Cindy, if tomorrow doesn't come for Cindy, her family's going to say, oh my gosh, she's had a passion for something and she created it. Oh my gosh, she spent time with us and our family. She made time for me as a spouse, as a mom. So if you're listening to us, make that time, because it's so important. Because when you do that, like Cindy, you're going to have lightning moments. You're going to have something that says, oh, I need to be doing that. You're going to say yes to you and no to others. So then you're going to clear the path so that you truly show up as that Shiro, that stronger, happy, empowered, radiant, original person you're supposed to be in your life. And that's why I love having people like you on the show, Cindy, because I think it's important that we have to pay that forward, like what you're doing. We got to find a way to pay a message forward that can impact somebody's life. So I thank you for doing that with us. So before we move on to the next segment, which Cindy already talked about it, but Cindy, tell everybody how they can reach you. We're going to, again, put everything in show notes. What's the best way somebody can reach you? And what's the best way if somebody's listening and wants to make a donation to your nonprofit?
So you can find me on Google under Cindy Witteman, on all social media platforms as well. My website is cfviews.com. And if you want to make a donation or just learn more about driving single parents, you can go to drivingsingleparents.org. All the information's there. Please reach out. You can DM me on Facebook Messenger, Instagram. I'm always available and I answer all of those myself.
So we'll make sure that's all in there. Okay, so I already forewarned Cindy. So again, if you are a follower and listener, and if you're new to the show, welcome. If you are a follower or listener, I want you to leave a review about the podcast or subscribe if you're watching YouTube down below, but share the message out to everybody. It's really important that we get that message forward. But Cindy knows that we're going to do our Better Questions, Better Life cards. If you're new to the show, these are about 70 cards that you can pull a card every day, and you can either do a journal note on, meditation on, or just let it be part of your day, walking out throughout the day. So I'm going to shuffle them and Cindy's going to tell me when to stop. And then we're going to get the card that she's going to answer. So here we go, Cindy. Tell me when to stop.
Okay, stop.
Ooh. All right. So Cindy's card is, what is my intention? What's your intention, Cindy?
and make a global impact to spread the message of kindness and how easy it is to do something little to cause a ripple effect of love for generations.
I love that. Why is that important to you?
It's important to me because when I was a kid, a lot of people did little things for me that made an impact on my life, and I will never forget that. And so, as although sometimes we do something for someone, we may not hear that big grand thank you or you're amazing or whatever in that moment. You really truly never know the impact you're making on someone's life.
So what is your
Bigger.
what is your little give you're doing today? What's your intention to pay something forward in the world? I love that that's your message. And I want to thank you for being part of the show today. I had so much fun and I cannot wait to see all the things you're going to do. I cannot wait to see the next idea that somebody tries to tell you no and you're like, let me get out of my way. I'm coming after it. And I think it's amazing. I think you're an amazing mom, an amazing wife. And I'm so glad that we got you on the show today to be part of our journey here on Conversations with Pearl as well. And so if you're listening to us and any of this resonates with you and you want to learn more, if you want to learn more about the coaching programs I offer, which is we've got some great soulful mini coaching sessions. So if you're new and you've never been coached before, we could talk for 30 minutes and really help you with some simple, easy steps to make an impact and little change in your life. So you can email Shiro at info@wsliving.com, and I'd be happy to share that with you. But in the meantime, I want to leave you with knowing that you come into this world. Life isn't always easy. It gets a little rough on the outside when you start opening up that oyster. But when you do on the inside, you find your pearl and you find your inner pearl of greatness. As Cindy has done today, I hope you go out and find your inner pearl of greatness. Make it an amazing day.